Critics call me an alarmist, claiming I have no proof of the dangers I've described. No evidence that microwave radiation from wireless infrastructure, protected by Section 704 of the Telecommunications Act of 1996, can harm our children's developing minds, erode empathy, or destabilize critical human traits. But let's be absolutely clear, the proof is there, and it's been accumulating for decades. Proof of stripped local rights. Section 704 explicitly forbids local and state governments from rejecting cell tower placements based on health concerns. This is not speculation. It's in the law's text. Communities that fear non-thermal biological effects are legally silenced. Their right to control what happens near schools, parks, and neighborhoods is gone. This isn't a theory, it's a fact. Proof of outdated safety guidelines. The FCC's thermal-only guidelines, locked in since the mid-1990s, remain unchanged despite a wealth of new science on non-thermal effects. A U.S. Court of Appeals ruling found that the FCC and FDA failed to justify these archaic rules with modern evidence. Thermal-only risk assessments are stuck in the past, ignoring decades of research that reveal far more subtle and dangerous influences on biology. The law demands adherence to these old standards, even though they've been shown to be out of step with current science. Proof of non-thermal effects. Modern research is replete with studies showing non-thermal EMF impacts. Oxidative stress EMFs increase reactive oxygen species (ROS) levels in cells. ROS can damage DNA, proteins, and lipids without raising tissue temperature. Neurotransmitter changes. Exposure can alter dopamine, serotonin, and glutamate, fundamental brain chemicals that shape mood, attention, and empathy. VGCC's activation. Dr. Martin Paul's work demonstrates how EMFs trigger voltage-gated calcium channels, flooding cells with calcium and disrupting cellular functions at non-thermal levels. These findings are not rumor or fringe ideas. They are documented in peer-reviewed literature. They're not predictions. They're observed biological effects. Proof of neural effects. Studies link prenatal microwave exposure to ADHD-like symptoms in animal models and suggest EMFs may influence the autism spectrum's rise by distorting the bioelectric signals crucial to early brain development. These aren't empty claims. They're backed by experiments and epidemiological data. Children today face a developmental environment saturated with EMFs, with subtle but profound neural consequences. Proof of hormonal and behavioral disruption. Hormonal imbalances tied to EMF and blue light exposure can influence identity formation, potentially increasing the prevalence of gender dysphoria. On the behavioral front, diminished empathy, also known as empathy deficit disorder, EDD, arises logically if neurotransmitters and bioelectric pathways that underlie moral reasoning and emotional connection are disrupted. The link between a noisier bioenvironment and eroded empathy is a scientific plausibility supported by known mechanisms of EMF interference. Cancer has long been the headline risk of EMF exposure. The National Toxicology Program and Ramazzini Institute studies provide clear evidence linking RF radiation to tumors in animals. But here's the shocking twist: cancer might be the least of our problems. Unlike a tumor, which affects an individual, the distortion of inherited traits like empathy, attention, and identity can be a cancer on society itself. These biological shifts can set the stage for moral and social breakdowns such as school shootings, extreme but telling indicators of eroded empathy and fractured human traits. We're talking about fundamental biological codes for traits passing through generations losing fidelity. Just as digital corruption can garble a once pristine file, EMF-induced entropic waste scrambles the bioelectric signals that guide development. The result? A population more prone to neurodevelopmental disorders, identity confusion, and empathy deficits. This isn't an alarmist fantasy, it's a sober assessment of known mechanisms and observable trends. The critics say no proof because acknowledging the evidence would require action repealing Section 704, updating FCC guidelines, funding independent research, and adopting precautionary measures. Ignoring the science is easier for those invested in the status quo. But we are past the point where ignorance is defensible. This isn't about halting technology or returning to the Stone Age. It's about understanding that the environment we've created, drenched in wireless signals and bound by laws that put profit before precaution, affects us at a biological and moral level. Until we dismantle Section 704, local communities remain powerless to demand safer infrastructure. Until we update safety standards, we remain stuck in a thermal-only fantasy. Until we accept non-thermal biological effects, we fail to address the root causes of our escalating crises. I'm not being alarmist. I'm presenting evidence. I've shown the breakdown of local rights, the defiance of modern science by outdated guidelines, the biological plausibility of non-thermal EMF effects, and the correlation with rising neurological and behavioral disorders. Denial serves no one but those who profit from maintaining this dangerous illusion. It's time to confront the facts. The law and the guidelines are out of date. The evidence is here. The threats are real. And we have both a moral and scientific imperative to protect our children's brains, restore local rights, and adapt our technology to human well-being, not the other way around. Visit RF Safe to learn more.